Hey everyone, a quick update on EHang. There was an article from Morgan Stanley which would have some significant changes for us EHang investors. I will also give you an update on the recent developments. But first of all, welcome to High School Dropouts Advice. If you need subtitles, click on the subtitle button right here. Through Patreon, you can get into our Discord community where you can get directly in touch with me and other subscribers. As you can see, EHang stock is holding pretty stable over $40 per stock, and we can see that it starts to follow the development and to copy another big Chinese stock, NIO. When you see that EHang is copying bigger moves of other Chinese stocks, this is a good sign that the stock is maturing. That EHang was admitted to the small stock index of China, MSCI, has definitely helped. If you want to help me out and you want to make at least $32, then you can sign up at Webull. You can trade Dogecoin, Bitcoin, Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies on Webull. You would get 4 free stocks up to $2,000 per stock when you deposit at least $100. The lowest amount you get from the 4 free stocks is $8 per stock, so you get at least $32. Use my link down below in the description to get the 4 free stocks. Jay Cruz found out that Hezhou City has approved EHang for 7 landing and takeoff points around the city and the area, which is a big step closer to integrating the 100 route infrastructure and certification. We also see on Liping that EHang is hiring again. This time we see airworthiness maintenance engineers and airworthiness engineers. We also still see that positions like audit supervisors are still open. In France, we got the news that the French want to use flying taxis for the 2024 Olympics. It seems like Volocopter, Airbus and EHang are in talks for the demonstration during the 2024 Olympic Games. We are not sure who will be selected or if all 3 will be presenting their products at the Olympic Games in 2024. Now let us talk about the big news, which made me think for a bit, and I would like to share my opinion on this matter. Morgan Stanley has shifted its timeline but stays bullish on eVTOL market. First, they have revised their projection down to 1 trillion in 2030 from its original 1.5 trillion because it's the opinion that the adoption curve and the certification landscape in Europe and the US will need more time. So for 2030, they reduced their US TAM estimate by nearly 75% from 45 billion to just 12 billion, which is less than Archer alone expect to make that year. This is huge news. This means that it will take longer than what many other investors and I have anticipated. But let us continue before we make our own opinion. The report says we currently assume is closer to 2040 or beyond rather than 2030. Once the inflection happens, however, they predict that eVTOL aircraft could be as transformative as automobiles were in the early 20th century and commercial airlines were after the Second World War. So they expect a way slower start than we hope, but with a big explosion at the end. By 2050, they predict that the global eVTOL market will be worth 9 trillion, as much as 6% of projected global gross domestic product in their base case, and up to 18.9 trillion in their bull case. This means in their bear case that it will be 6%. 8% of the world's GDP and 11 to 12% of the world's GDP in a bull case. By comparison, the automotive sector today accounts for only around 3% of the US GDP. This means that the eVTOL market will be twice to 4 times as big as the automotive sector today. So this is a big eruption in the industry. Morgan Stanley also accounts for 52% of its base case market in 2040, up from a previously estimated share of 28% for transporting goods and humans by drones. So this is a massive shift up. You guys know I'm a long-term investor, but following this report, this would mean that it will start to get interesting in 2040, which is roughly in 19 years. This would be, even for me, too long and boring. But let me show you more of the report. We found out that the report is not wholly objective. The paper also contains incomplete, inaccurate, and outdated information that raises questions about its author's understanding of the UAM landscape. The report overall seems inaccurate. So how should an EHang investor feel now? Let us check the fundamentals. We know that EHang is compared to other countries and other companies way ahead. We also need to think about the certification issue. We know that Europe and the US will need more time for certification, and China will be most likely the first in the certification process. Let me show you more data which prove my point that there's more momentum in China than in the USA or in Europe. Let us see how much money China is spending on its GDP to construct and maintain its infrastructure. You see that China is by far a big leader. You see that the USA is spending about 1/10 of what China is spending on their GDP. The USA GDP was around 60% more than China in 2018. It was about 20 trillion versus China's 13 trillion. But China spends 5%, which is 650 billion, versus the USA with 100 billion. So China did spend 6.5 times more on infrastructure. Let's have a look at other metrics. We see that China pays annual growth in research and development expenditures since 1995. We see a massive lead here. So it should not surprise us that the total investment in research and development surpasses the USA, and in 2020 China overtook the USA with money invested in research and development. You can also see that scientific papers were more released by Chinese scientists since 2016. This is easy to explain. The cost of research and development is cheaper in China than in the USA, so it means scientists cost less money and discoveries will cost less. So we can expect that China is growing quicker in the next decade, which will also be reflected in adopting new infrastructures with drones. The investment in infrastructure is already bigger, and the scientific background is already more mature. It's sometimes hard for us Westerners to believe. I have not been to China, but you have to admit that they are ahead if you do your research. I'm not here to discuss politics, and our focus is if EHang will pop at around 2030 or 2040. And from this little research we can agree that it will be instead 2030 or before. Let me show you another point which highlights my opinion about the timeline. We see that China has the most advanced and largest railroad connection globally with the fastest trains. By comparison, the USA was starting to build a high-speed railway in 2015, and in May 2019, former President Donald Trump cancelled major federal grants, which funded the project. You can read that it's expected that the high-speed railway will take more than 151 billion and a construction time of 25 years. So we can agree that China is ahead in its high-speed railway connection by at least 20 years. And it will also be ahead with its drone infrastructure. So I think we are safe as EHang investors, and my timeline remains that EHang will be $100 billion company within 10 years, which will mean it will make 50 times my money. If you are the same opinion and you want to support my channel, you can buy an EHang t-shirt at my shop. I have different designs and qualities which you can choose from. Anyways, for legal reasons, let me tell you that I'm not a financial advisor, CPA, politician or realtor, so always consult with an expert before making a decision. Everything said here is purely my own opinion and is for entertainment value only. Remember to do your own due diligence. Thank you so much and see you hopefully in the next video. Thank you, bye.